impacting life 24/7. And yes, Friday comes early because I only work till Thursday. How beautiful could that be? And I only work till Thursday because that's just in my contract. And guess who wrote the contract? I did. How wonderful is that? Monday night, Tuesday night, and Thursday night are the live episode of Impacting Life 24/7. And I am blessed every single night to have someone of dynamic impact joining me in the virtual studios. You know, a lot of people can say that, they punch a clock, they go 9 to 5, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's grace and honor in that. But there's another component of life that I get to walk in where I am fulfilling a higher calling, walking a higher path that I felt like I've been destined to do. So with this show, Impacting Life 24/7, we decided that we were going to bring people into our world. Before it was just me. Y'all have seen me speak. I've spoken to nearly 400,000 people around the country. And all that's great. It's great to have your name on the marquee and all that kind of stuff. But it's another thing when you can bring people of similar impact. They may not have done the same thing as you, but they've made a dynamic impact. And I'm blessed one more time at the close of this week to have someone joining me who has been impacted by life and who is now taking that impact and helping others. I don't know if I've ever done a show in this particular genre or vein. I don't think I have. And we do 144 shows a year, ladies and gentlemen. And I think this show is probably long overdue. All of us have experienced grief at some point in our life. And if you have not experienced grief in your life, if you live long enough, you will. It is an inescapable companion for all of us. And the challenge is, okay, so those of us that remain and those of us that continue on with our life, what do we say? What do we do? How do we go on? Or is it possible to go on? Well, I've been blessed to be joined by a lady named Susan Ways. She's joining us in the high definition studios of Impact Life 24/7. And she is going to help us walk through and unpack how to deal with grief. And Susan, it is my high honor to welcome you to our show, Impacting Life 24/7. Welcome so much.
Thank you. I am very grateful to be here.
And Susan, as you know, we typically do a pre-show. And Susan and I's schedules got a little bit crossed. And so we got together just a few moments ago, but fortunately we've already met and talked about this because I do feel like even if we had never met, we could still do a complete show on this topic because it's something that you have lived. It's something that I have lived, not to your degree, but something that I have lived. And I believe it's something that thousands and tens of thousands of others that will listen to this show have experienced. So before we get into that, Susan, I would like for you to let our audience know this is something that we do for every guest. Let our audience know, because they're going to want to know how they can contact you, how they can connect with you, how they can get up with you.
Absolutely. So I am on all kinds of social media. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, and you can just look me up by my name, Susan Ways, and I'm on Instagram. I have a website, www.tendrilsofgrief.com, and you can contact me through that. I'm happy for people to email me directly, Susan_Ways@msn.com.
So you mentioned, and this can be just a lighthearted moment, but you mentioned what's the thing that you mentioned? What's one of the contact methods that you had? Boy, I just have drawn a blank. Live on radio. You've got Facebook, you've got Instagram,
And LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Yes.
Am I behind the times for not using LinkedIn? I have never used LinkedIn.
So LinkedIn is more of a professional networking website for people in business. There's a lot of business information, professional help information on there, and it's where you can go to connect with other professionals.
So I need to get up. I need to get up on the wheel, huh?
I think you should.
I'm a global professional.
Yes.
I've got this massive empire here, staff all over the world. Surely I should be on LinkedIn. I just am behind the times. I can't get my vice president Greg on Instagram. He just recently migrated from a flip phone, so we're doing good. Okay. And,
is he 80?
Huh?
Is he 80?
Is he 80? No, Greg's not 80. He's pushing Greg. I won't tell how old Greg is, but he's pushing on 20 years from 80. So there you go. And I'm very, very thankful for all of our folks that are tuning in and saying hello on our live audience. Of course, if you guys are listening on our podcast, as you know, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, we produce this show, Impacting Life 24/7. And again, I am honored to have with me Susan Ways. And Susan, what I'd like for us to do next is introduce you to our audience, because our audience comes on all different shapes and sizes. We're on 11 or 12 different platforms. And so people listen in different ways. I would like for you to just kind of introduce Susan Ways to everybody and let us know, your story a little bit, and then we'll go from there.
So I am an HR professional. I do HR and compliance by day. That is my day job. By night now, I am doing podcasting. And how I transitioned from a professional regular job into podcasting was through the death of my husband, who he died in 2017, in December of 2017. So I just celebrated the 3-year anniversary of that. And when I was going through that journey, was really kind of looking for a medium, an outlet of where I could get information. I was consuming any information. I'm a studier. I'm somebody that researches by nature. And so I was looking for information on grief, anything I could find. And I just couldn't find anything. And after a while, I thought, I'm going to start my own podcast on grief, because I want to pay it forward. And I want to be the person that puts the information that I was searching for and couldn't find out into the world.
Wow. And we're, again, when we talked however long ago it was, 3 or 4 weeks ago, your story dynamically impacted me because, I struggle and have struggled with some of the things that you say that we need to learn about. If you're dealing with someone who has gone through a loss of a loved one, the whole concept of what do you say and how do you say it and all that, it can be a challenge. And then, okay, so how long is grief? And, we've got this pseudo science method that says, there's these multiple stages of grief. And once you reach the final stage, you should be back to banging tambourines and running around town. And you experiencing it in such a sudden way, with you expecting, 20, 30 more years with your husband, realize that no, grief doesn't get processed like you guys want it to be processed. So let's go down this journey. I'm so thankful again for you taking time out of your schedule. I know you're very busy, and I'm thankful that you've got a podcast. I'm thankful that other people will have you on their podcast. I think everyone should, all of my podcast contemporaries and colleagues should have Susan Ways on, because this is a story and this is a doctrine that I think we all need to get better at. So let's start from the beginning. You got married. How old were you when you got married?
Well, this was my second marriage, and I was 31 when I got married, and I maybe 31 when we met. Isn't that terrible? I don't really remember the exact age. We got married in 2001,
right?
And we like I said, I had 3 children from my previous marriage, and I married this wonderful man. Actually, on our very first date, I came back to work and I told the women I work with, I'm going to marry this man. I just knew it. Like my soul just knew it.
I felt like, if I could just interject, I felt like my wife probably said that about me when she saw me. She said, "You know what? I'm just going to marry this man," and I said that about her for sure, because we only dated for like 3 weeks, and then we were married.
Oh my goodness,
that was
that's pretty
that
fast.
was 27 years ago, so we're okay.
You're doing okay. Absolutely.
So you met this amazing man, and you came back and told your coworkers that you were going to marry him. So this was love at first sight, huh?
I wouldn't say I'm somebody that believes in love at first sight, but maybe a knowing. There was a knowing
Yeah.
at first sight. And
Mhm.
when we were together and out together, there was just something that I felt like he was the person that I had been looking for. And I had been through a pretty bad marriage with my kids, my older kids' father, and we were married for 9 years, and we were just very young and shouldn't have been married. But now I'm in a different place, but I've got these 3 kids and I'm trying to figure out my life, and I'm getting myself together, getting my career together, so building lots of things that I should have been building many years prior. But I'm with him, and we dated for 2 years and moved in together and got married in August of 2001.
August of 2001. So you're just 1 month away from our anniversary. Our anniversary is in September, and we got married in 1995, but or somewhere around it. I can't remember the year anymore. And so it was obviously a great time, and you guys were enjoying your life, right?
We were really enjoying our life, and we were growing together. And I was just telling one of my friends the other day that people say this all the time, but I really felt this way. His name was Paul. And I really felt this way about Paul. And I know he felt this way about me, is that I wanted to be a better person because of him. And he wanted to be a better person because of me. But we did something about it. It wasn't just words or a feeling. We actually became and grew into better people because we were together. And we were so grateful and so thankful and appreciative, and expressed that about our relationship. And we knew what we had was something really special.
And I'm thankful that you're allowing us, to kind of come into your heart and your world and your psyche. We didn't plan to go down this route, but that's okay, because I really do feel like I want to go on this journey with you, Susan, because again, like I told you, I've got brothers and sisters and family members and very, very close friends that will tune into this show, who at one point or another, one interval or another, we don't get to determine the interval. That's the challenge. Will want to come back and drift back to this show maybe, and listen to your words of encouragement and education, and you're going to exploit some things for us tonight. But it's important for us to also understand that this was a very happy situation, and you guys were obviously pursuing careers. And what did Paul do?
So Paul worked for the IRS, and he started working there when he was 18 years old,
Oh my.
in at midnight shift in the tape library, and worked his way up. And he was a database administrator for them for many, many years.
Oh wow. So when you hear those 3 letters,
I know.
IRS is like, uh-oh, better run. but so he worked with them for many years, huh?
Yes. Yes.
And
He
so you
celebrated his 31st year before he died.
Oh wow. And so you had a career also in HR, right?
I did.
Okay. And how was that?
Well, that was great because things were wonderful. Life was good. We had all of the things that people think they want. And again, the one thing I want to impress upon people is we did all the right things. And we all live under the illusion that if we're grateful and if we're good stewards of what we've been given, that it won't be taken away from us tragically, unexpectedly, undeservingly, whether it's a parent losing a child or a spouse losing their spouse. But unfortunately, no matter what you do, it can be all of the right things, and this can still happen to you.
Wow, you boy, I tell you what, you are teaching us tonight, Susan, and I really thank you. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you tuning into Impact Life 24/7, because we have a live audience, so I have to say hello to those folks. And then, of course, we have a podcast audience, which is heard all across the country and around the globe. I'm joined in the virtual studios by Susan Ways, and is the she's a lady that has overcome so much, because when we think about where she was in life, who would have thought that she needed to create a podcast called Tendrils of Grief? But she is the founder and CEO of that podcast, and she has started it because she felt like, man, there were, here I am, I've gone through this major life event, and I really didn't find the resources or such to help me get through it. And oftentimes I think we try our best, Susan. We try our best, like, okay, well, I maybe this is what was done for me, so that's what I know to do. But here we are. Susan Ways is married to a wonderful man named Paul, and they both have great careers. Life is good, house, kids, all the things, accoutrements associated with that. And then out of nowhere, things change. What happened?
Well, Paul started having symptoms in about a year before he was diagnosed and was going to the doctor and having everything checked out. It started out with chest pain, and he had all of the cardiologist workups done. And then it became an acid reflux issue, and he was having that checked out. And then he had a pain in his side, and then he had a pain in his back. And it wasn't until he couldn't breathe about a year after this all started that he went to urgent care, and they saw through an x-ray that he had fluid around his lung. So we ended up in the emergency room at our local hospital, and we found out that he had a lesion on his lung, and they thought it was tuberculosis. And Paul was a man that just didn't do much. He went to work, he traveled around our town, lived very small.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to the doctor, there's no way, if he has tuberculosis, this whole world is screwed because it's everywhere. And that was kind of the beginning of the journey. They threw on their hazmat suits. We all had to be in these completely gowned up to see him, to be with him. But then we found out that he was originally misdiagnosed with cancer of the gastrointestinal tract. And we went to Hopkins because I just didn't feel like something was right. I didn't feel comfortable with our local hospital. There was just a knowingness in me. We all have that.
Yep.
And I went to Johns Hopkins and found out through that he actually had lung cancer. And the type of lung cancer that he had affects younger men in their 40s, typically non-smokers, and it's 100% terminal, very aggressive. And the life expectancy at 12 months was less than 15%.
Wow. And so, and she just brought up a whole bunch of different points that kind of is all resonating with me, Susan. You talk about your local area, and we appreciate our local folks that do local things, but oftentimes getting another opinion at another place is important. I think about my daughter. She had all these symptoms and situations going on, and they assumed that she had, she was having depression and all this other kind of stuff, and come to find out she had MS. But we didn't find it. We didn't get the diagnosis till we went to Duke Medical Center. Trying to do local sometimes just doesn't work. And what I would just say as a parenthetical statement is that, man, sometimes a second or third opinion is important. And so Paul gets this diagnosis that, hey, man, it's not tuberculosis, but it is a form of cancer. Obviously not something that everybody gets, but it's a form of cancer that's in the lungs for people who don't smoke. And Paul took relatively good care of himself.
So Paul never did an illegal drug in his life. He never smoked a cigarette in his life. He did not drink. He was a very muscular man, worked out, maybe didn't eat very well, and probably could work out, exercise, do cardio a little bit more. But I think most of the country falls into that.
Yes.
So yes, he was a relatively young, healthy man.
And again, ladies and gentlemen that are tuning in to Impacting Life 24/7, I like to say hello to a few folks. Hello to Stephanie, and hello to Joannie and Mike, and folks that are tuning in. I'm blessed, and we're all blessed to have Susan Ways with us, because oftentimes when people go through something that Susan's gone through, they become reclusive. And we will talk about that particular point in your life. But I'm so thankful that you are sharing this experience with so many others that will, in some time, in some fashion, go through it. And I feel like what we're going to discuss tonight is going to help some folks. So Susan Ways, my guest, she was married to an amazing man. They were living their dream. They were living in their dream home. Life was good. They were thankful. They were good stewards of their money, time, and talents. And all of a sudden they get this diagnosis that, Paul, unfortunately, we hate to tell you this, but you've got an aggressive form of cancer that's not going to be good. So when you got the diagnosis, what happens next?
Well, there's the options for treatment. We live in a very curative society, and I wish the conversation had been different with the doctors. And I wish they had told us that his chances of survival were slim to none, with none being the prevailing one. And we went through some cancer treatment is terrible, and it will wreck your life. The quality of life that you have becomes important. And I wish we would have known that he had probably 12-ish months to live. And I think we maybe would have tried one treatment modality, but we ended up trying three, and he had a violent reaction to all three of them. For the 15 months that he lived after his diagnosis, 12 months of that were brutal. And not only is there the physical torture of the treatment and the cancer, but there's the emotional and psychological torture, because he did not want to die. He did not want to leave me. He did not want to leave his daughter. He wasn't ready for his life to be over. And coming to terms with that for him was really hard. But when the person that you love is crying to you, or you see them begging God to spare their life, there's nothing you can say. I can't say, hang in there, it's going to be okay. There's no platitude. We'll get through this. It'll get better, because none of that stuff is true anymore.
Wow. I didn't think this show was gonna. I didn't think, Susan. I did not think, but I am the emotional one in our family. So, man, you know, she said something pretty profound, ladies and gentlemen, that there was no platitude that you could say to Paul that would ease the overwhelming anxiety that was the order of the day for him. When you're told that, hey, listen, you've got a form of cancer that the success ratio is 0, and get your affairs in order. When I just turned 46, ladies and gentlemen. I know I look 32, but I just turned 46, and I'm looking to live at least another 46 years, Susan. I got to get another 46 out of this carcass right here. But if somebody in a white medical coat with 12 years of education stood in a icy cold room and told my wife and I, get your affairs in order, you only got just a short time to live. I can imagine that was that really began the whole evolution of what happens next. So after you were told, and after we went through these violent treatments, which did not add quality of life, where did you find yourself at then?
Well, I'm an eternal optimist and I believe in miracles. And I had faith that we were going to be a miracle, that Paul was going to be a miracle. And I held on to that faith until he died. He died in my arms. And I prayed and believed beyond a grain of mustard seed that he was going to be the miracle. But I will tell you, there's 2 points I want to make. Number one is everybody's flocking in because all of the people who didn't make time for him while he was alive and didn't spend time with him were now coming. They wanted last minutes with him. And I really had to set some strict boundaries, as did he, because the time to celebrate someone's life is when they're living, not when they're dying. And the time to build a relationship is when somebody's living, because you cannot fix 47 years of broken relationships in the last 12 months of somebody's life. And that was one thing that we really drew some boundaries around, and we restricted the people that could come in and see him and how much time they could spend with him, because the people who were there for him day in and day out were me and my daughter and my other children, and his parents were there. And there's just not enough time. And we all wanted to squeeze every second out of that we could. So that's the first point I want to make. The second point I'm going to make is we took that opportunity, that 15 months, I consider it to be a gift. And I often refer to his death as a beautiful tragedy. And what I tell people is we made the choice to live with our souls inside out. There was nothing that we didn't say to each other. We would spend hours in the middle of the night talking, lying in bed and talking about how grateful we were for each other, talking about all of the things, all of our hopes and dreams that we wanted, what we wanted for our daughter moving forward, what he wanted for me moving into this world alone without him. And we just shared everything. And because of that, I feel like we were able to end our relationship on a note of true love, of completeness. I have no regrets. And obviously, if I could have him back today, I would have him back today, but that's not possible. But I was able to exit that with no regrets. And it's changed how I show up in my relationships now.
Wow. Susan, I mean, why are you doing this to me? I mean, I got to get it together. Here's what I just have to unpack a couple things that you brought up, and very, very, very good points. The first point was a point that we see oftentimes in the expiration of people, especially when it's tragically sudden, where those who dug their heels in the sand and said, I'm not going to talk to this person, or whatever the grievous thing that happened in their life that caused them to part ways with this person. Now, as the sun is setting, then it's time to come back. And the truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, that we none of us really do know, and none of us really do know if we got another sunrise or sunset. And I'm just as guilty of it. There are people that need to hear from you now. They need to hear from you now, when there's not tragedy and there's not all types of emotions. There's not, uncertainty and anxiety. They need to hear from you now. They need to hear from you, and they need to know that you love them. Sometimes we have these falling outs in life. Y'all know that. Y'all know I'm talking to you. CL King is talking to you. We have these falling outs in life, and we fall out with one another, and there's days, weeks, months, and decades where we don't talk to someone that maybe we was raised in the same house with.
Can I say something really quickly that falls right into that? And this is funny.
Go ahead.
One time, Paul and I were having dinner conversation about what we would do if we won the lottery. And we ended up in an argument because we disagreed over what to do with our hypothetical, never happening lottery winnings. and didn't talk for 2 days about it because we were so mad at each other. And I laugh about that now, but you're so right. I don't care where we're going to dinner. I don't care what we're going to do. I just want to be with the people I love. And if I want Mexican tonight and you want Italian, we're going to have Italian, and I'll get Mexican on my own tomorrow.
You know what I'm saying? Or else I'll catch it in the drive-through, and the second point that Susan Mays made was that they lived with their souls inside out. I have never, ever heard a statement such as that. And maybe we could all take a note of that. And maybe we need to start turning our souls inside out and live that way. So, Susan, you guys are coming to terms with the inevitability of the shortening of Paul's life, and you say that he passed away in your arms. I've only experienced that type of phenomena one time with my mother-in-law, my wife's mother. I was in the room when she drew her last breath, and it is one of the most unique experiences you can experience in life. Is that not true?
It absolutely is. And that was the way Paul and I wanted it. And he wanted it to be just him and me. And how I knew when it was happening, I knew we were getting close. And I actually set my alarm for every half hour that night. And I would happen to be awake when his breathing changed. And I just grabbed him and I held him in my arms and I just talked him through the whole thing.
Wow. That's beautiful. That truly is love. And I hope that there's a book coming out soon from Susan Ways about this amazing story. And so the next part, Greg, I'm just going to forego our sponsor commercial tonight. I hope our sponsors will be okay with that. And we'll just catch them. We'll catch them next week. Typically at 9:00, we do a commercial for our sponsors, but I just feel like we need to kind of just focus, if that's okay.
Right.
And considering the show was created by me, they'll all forgive me. So, Susan, as you enter into now, this term really grates on my nerves, but as you enter into now this new normal, you wake up one morning and your husband's there, albeit in a very debilitated state. And you wake up the next morning and he is not there. This sets in motion a totally new life for you. So walk us through the first couple weeks of that experience.
Well, the first couple weeks, it's all kinds of people are coming in, and he died 6 days before Christmas. And so the next thing I know, my brother, who I absolutely adore, is on his way from Los Angeles, and he was at my house for Christmas. My best friend is flying in from New Orleans. I have another brother coming in from Florida, another brother coming in from Oregon. And these people who I don't see that I adore are now surrounding me. And so there's love. And love makes up for a lot of things. Love helps a lot of things. And so for the 2 weeks, because we had to wait till Christmas and we actually had a funeral service for him between Christmas and New Year's, but then everybody leaves. And so that's when reality sets in and you're alone. And people start to drop off one by one, bit by bit. People are bringing casseroles, and I didn't need casseroles. And I always tell people I will never bring a casserole if you're going through a tragedy, but I will offer to come and sit and hold your hand. Like people could have brought me wine that probably would have been better, but I just needed love.
Right.
And when people asked me what I needed, I didn't even know. I couldn't even tell them because I was so paralyzed. But looking back, what I needed was love. I needed people to show up for me. I needed people to come over and just sit with me and do whatever I wanted to do and just be there and love me.
Yeah, and so I think we talked about this, if my memory serves me well, because as you know, I just had another birthday, so I can't remember what day it is today. We talked about processing this, right? We talked about, okay, so Susan, you were there the whole time. Your husband went through this painful agony of trying to survive, trying to live, and He succumbed to his illness. You were there at the moment he took his last breath. We had the funeral surrounded by love. You know, all the people are gone now. And um so okay, Susan, you should be good to go after a couple weeks. You know what I mean? Get the Christmas tree up. Let's you got a job, you got a daughter to take care of. So but you started realizing that that grief wasn't happening with you like that, right?
It was not. And actually, I was pushed to come back to work before I was ready.
Right.
And looking back, I would have taken some time for myself because you've got to sit in those feelings. You've got to feel those feelings. And you can't, we are such an avoidance society, and we are either over Netflixing or over drinking or overeating or over exercising or overworking. It all doesn't have to look unhealthy. And then we get rewarded because people will say, oh, look at Susan. She came right back to work and she's jumped right back in the saddle and she's doing her job. But that's an avoidance tactic. And you've got to deal with your grief. Your grief is going to deal with you at some point. You can't just push it down and push it down. So I labeled my years. The first year I called the year of shock and awe because I had no idea what I was doing or who I was or how to rebuild my life. Because I was a wife. I was a two-parent family. Now I'm a single mom. I'm a widow. I'm all of these things that I never wanted to be or asked to be. And I had to figure that out and figure out how do I get my daughter to dance class when I'm at work?
Right.
And I'm not an ask for help kind of a person. And all of a sudden I'm in an ask for help kind of a situation.
Yeah, my good friend Bettina Carey out there in Washington State, she says she's sending you a compassionate hug, Susan. So we've got some really amazing folks in the IL247 network that's impacting life 24/7. And Susan Ways is my guest, ladies and gentlemen. She is truly a very very kind soul to come on this show and help us all. You know, I mean, look at her. She's a lot stronger than I'm feeling right now. I'm just like ready to just go somewhere and break down. But you know, even how many it's been, you're going in your third year, correct?
Well, actually, I guess I'm in my fourth year because we
Okay.
just celebrated the third anniversary. I don't use the word strong, I use the word brave and courageous because strong for me is physical. It's you can lift things, you can stand up, you can put yourself together. But being brave or being courageous is when you don't know what's in front of you and you do it anyway. And that's how I feel about a grief journey is I feel like you've got to be courageous and you've got to be brave. And we use the word strong a lot to define grief. And I used to tell people, I don't know what that means when they would say, you're so strong. But what I wanted to be and what I found strength in was courage and bravery.
Courage and bravery. Wow. So I think we did talk about this in our pre-show, not our pre-show, but our pre-interview weeks ago. Sometimes you said it, you just alluded to it, in which is perfect, perfect setup for this next frame of questioning. You said that you need to sometimes sit in the grief, or you need to own this grief, and so then, is there a magic, listen to us out here, ladies and gentlemen, is there a magic time when, you know, after sitting in grief, that everything's good and you should just be, you will be able to get up and everything will be fine, you'll never feel those feelings again?
Ask anyone who has been in a grief situation, and they will tell you the same thing. The world gives you 1 year. And after 1 year, people are chop, chop, let's get on with this. You need to be done with it. And they don't understand why 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, you're still grieving in some capacity. And you and I talked in the pre-show that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote about the 5 stages of grief, but that's not for grieving people. That's for people who are terminally ill.
Right.
And somehow it got adopted into the grief world. But I tell them there's not 5 stages of grief. There's like 5,000 stages of grief. And I wasn't prepared for the loneliness, the incredible loneliness that I still struggle with at times, the confusion over who I am and who I'm supposed to be, the fear, the anxiety. These are things that aren't talked about. And I was shocked that I had all of this, and I still have this now, going into to varying degrees.
Right.
But life, my daughter says it beautifully, like life and time will numb the pain a little bit, and so you move on. And that's what Paul would have wanted for me. But I'm not done. I'm not done this. And it's still, I'm figuring things out. I'm remembering things. I'm trying to show up as the best person I can be to honor him and his life and our time together, and to honor our daughter and be a good example for her, to let her know it's okay to cry, and it's okay to cry in year 4, and it's okay to miss him. We talk about him all the time.
Well, Paul is he's looking down on us, and I know that he's smiling on this episode. One of the things that my wife dealt with, and she was with her mother. Like I said, that was the first experience I ever had watching someone leave the surly bonds of earth and leave this earth and exit out of their body, was with her mother. And she had walked with her mother through the cancer treatment, and they were hopeful, and things had looked like things were going better, and we were going to get a better prognosis. And then bam, all of a sudden it turned for the worse. And it turned for the worse so quick that my wife had come down here back from Ohio. She drove down here to come down here for a meeting that she could have probably put off. And they said, you need to get back up here. Mom's not doing well. So my wife made it the 14-hour trip to Ohio. She made it in 9 hours. I was behind her. I had to get off work, get the kids, and we hightailed it up there. And, she said after we buried her mother that she was struggling with everyone around her being happy. Like she felt guilty for being happy, because it's like, this is not a happy time. So why are we having all this frivolity, and why are people laughing? And she's seeing, it's almost like in a movie, where you see these slow motion things happening. And she's like, well, why are they going out to the mall? And why is this? Don't y'all understand? And it really does center on the individual. So when people come to someone like that, when people come to someone like Susan Ways, oftentimes we say all the wrong things, right?
Yes, absolutely. That people, and they mean well, and it's grace. That was my word. I just was like, great. And I had actually a bracelet that had the word grace on it, because people made me so angry. And if one more person I heard, when you read or you see, and people were like, oh, my so-and-so was cured from cancer, or my so-and-so was healed, it was an answer to prayer. Well, guess what? Every answer is an answer to prayer. It might be no, but it's an answer to prayer. And your prayer may be, heal my husband from cancer. And God's response may be, that's not my plan. So the answer is no. It's still an answer. And that is insulting, because you feel forsaken. It leaves the people who the answer is no feeling forsaken and not understanding what the bigger picture is. But I had people say to me, oh, you're young and you're attractive, you'll get married again. Someone said this to me before Paul had even passed away and he was in his last stages. And you have these visions of like reaching out and grabbing someone by the throat and throwing them down on the ground. And you can't, because you have to just take a deep breath. And I know people are trying to find hope. Again, we're not comfortable. We can't. It's get uncomfortable with your grief and get uncomfortable with other people's grief. You don't have to have anything wonderful to say to them, but you can just sit with them and you can say, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. This is terrible. My heart's breaking. I don't know how to respond to you, but I just want to be here for you.
That's great insight right there. And I knew we were going to get there. That well, they're in a better place now. No, the better place for me was with me. Or, man, they're no longer suffering. All the things that we typically say. But you have just given us some really good insight that we don't have to attempt to try to move somebody on with our oratory.
Right.
right? This person's sobbing, they're crying, they're depressed, whatever. We don't have to try to move them on to what, well, here I am. I'm not in grief. So let me say the right words that will maybe bring you on to the normal side. And the truth of the matter is, man, that we just have to, like you said, man, and I'm learning that. I've learned that just from meeting you. I've learned that man, you know what? I don't have the words to say. And I'm sorry, and I just want to sit here with you. Sometimes says it all.
It is the best thing that you can say because grief is icky and it doesn't feel good and it's depressing. And being around people who are grieving is a buzzkill. My daughter lost friends because of it, because teenagers, it's hard enough to be a teenager under the best circumstances, but to be grieving and be a teenager, I mean, that's a super buzzkill. And I lost friends, she lost friends. People just don't want to do the heavy stuff with you.
Right. And Stephanie Eccles-Toon, who I've known for over 20 years, she commented and she said, "Thanks for sharing your story. I needed to hear this tonight. I know Stephanie has gone through some loss of her own in recent months." And the thing about social media is that we are all kind of living our lives together. You know what I mean? We see graduation pictures, and we see King just got a new dog, and we see all this kind of stuff, and we also see the loss and of folks that we care about. And understanding how to be there for them in a way that doesn't make them feel guilty for how they're feeling is important. A very, very, I told you he's my brother, but he's really just a super, super, close, been a friend of mine for 23, 4 years. He lost his son in July or June, July. And he called me one day and said, "I need you to come get me. I'm at the border of Tennessee." And this is the kind of friendship we have. I stopped what I was doing. The very next morning, I was on my way to pick my boy up. And this is his only son. And he lost his son. And this is a young kid, a kid that was in my house that I babysat. And I didn't really, I wish I could have had this podcast before, because I really didn't have a clue of what to say and how to, he processed grief differently too, because Francis is a tough man. He's hard. He's a good man, but he don't cry a lot. But I knew that the loss of the heir to his throne was tough for him. And we have to be, and I dedicated this show to him and Letitia, and I also dedicated to my son and the loss of his friend just recently. And Susan Ways is helping us guys realize that grief is a fact of life, but we need to be able to understand how to work with somebody and walk with somebody through it. We don't rush them along. We don't push them. We walk with them. And your podcast is a unique name. It's called the Tendrils of Grief. And I asked you this, so I want you to tell our audience why you chose the term tendrils of grief.
When I envision tendrils, and this wasn't what I set out to call the podcast, I just talk a lot about the tendrils of grief when I'm talking about them, because tendrils are those little snaky, viney things that come out of the ground, and you see them in the horror films, and they grab the people around their legs and then snare them. And that's what grief is like, because you're walking along and then all of a sudden you're caught. And you might stumble, you might fall, you might be down for a while, and it can really catch you with many tendrils, but you just don't know where they are and when they're coming. And there's so many of them. It just kind of resonated with me as a title for the podcast, and that's how I came up with it.
Yeah. And, that I understand, and I really appreciate it. And I hope that, thank you, Greg, for putting it in the chat. I would love for everybody to go to tendrilsofgrief.com. That's where we can go to also.
Yeah.
I want you to connect with Susan. And, there's nothing like talking to someone who has experienced it and is giving us an insight, because society is they say that the sun rises and sets every 24 hours, but that's really a misnomer. The sun doesn't set, the sun doesn't rise, the earth turns, and the sun is remaining the same. It's the earth that turns. And when we do our evolution around and we come back and we face that sun again, that doesn't mean that all the pain is gone. That doesn't mean that all the hurt is gone. And we don't get to count how many revolutions that we turn on the axis of the earth before it gets any easier. I know that I still see tears in my wife's eyes, and her mother passed away in 2012. So on the anniversaries of like her birthday or Mother's Day and such, it is still, obviously all the other things begin to distract you from grieving, focusing on grief, your work, your job, whatever. But then when you go back to that place, it's like it's a fresh wound again. And so Mike says, thanks for being so courageous, Susan. Many will be blessed by you sharing this with us. And we have all truly been blessed. I'm at the 3-minute mark, Susan. So
can I say something really quickly to your friends who just lost their son?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I can't even imagine what it's like to lose a child. And I am so sorry that has to be devastating. One of the things that really helped me was we all want to go down the rabbit hole of why. Why did this happen to us? Why did this happen to him? This person was good. And we begin to go into our logical mind to try to find answers. And I call that a circle the drain. You will never get an answer that's going to feel good for you. Yeah. But what I've asked myself that has really transformed how I feel about my grief is, what now? What's next? And I look in that what's now and what's next. How do I honor myself and how do I honor my husband every day in what I do? And how do I show up as the best person? Because I feel like that's the best way to honor myself and honor my husband and make his death not in vain. So I don't like to give advice, but if that's just one little tip, instead of that why question, just really ask for yourself, what now? And what can I do to honor myself and honor the life and the legacy of this individual?
Yes. What now? What next? That's a great antidote. Stephanie says, we live in a microwave society with social media and the internet. Everything moves so fast. There's nothing like grief. I never knew it until my mom passed in September. I still cannot believe it. Thanks again for sharing your heart. And we love you, Stephanie, and continue to pray for you. So, Susan, this has been quite the show, and on more fronts than any. It has truly, I think, ministered. That's a good church term for y'all, but it has ministered to us all. And I know that I'm processing grief on multiple fronts, but now I understand that some days, what now, what next? Some days it's okay to just sit in it and own it. So that's the music. Susan, what I like for you to do is just have a word of encouragement to all of our audience out there, and I would love for you to speak to our audience. You got about 45 seconds. Give them a word of encouragement, would you please?
The one thing I want to say that's the most important thing in this world is be kind to yourself. And when you're grieving, just let yourself grieve and be kind to yourself about it and be kind to other people. That saying that we overuse, you don't know what battle somebody's fighting, but it's so true. And I think kindness will be the antidote for a lot of the things that are plaguing our society.
Susan, are you from Newport, North Carolina?
I am not. I am born and bred in Maryland.
Greg, she is not from Newport, North Carolina. He put that in the chat. Greg is the executive producer of the show, and he keeps us all on our toes on keeping the information of our guests in front of our people. She's not from Newport, Greg. You live in Maryland.
I live in Maryland. Is Greg with the flip phone?
Yeah, he's we just give him a pass, okay, Susan. Hey, and look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Susan can smile, and you know, the joy of the Lord is definitely her strength. So, Susan, we will do this again, okay? I definitely want to and get working on that book. That book is important. And anything, I just want you to consider yourself a friend of Impacting Life 24/7. You truly have helped us tonight, and we appreciate you. We thank you. Thank you so much for spending time with us tonight, okay?
Thank you.
And God bless you. I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. I don't even know what to say. You know, because, you know, my family does tease me. My family does tease me about being the emotional cat in the house. I'm extra and I'm emotional because I'm a speaker. So, you know, it just has bled into my veins. But that right there was powerful. You know, that story. And I again, really, really do think that we will all need to come to, maybe not to this show, but we will need to come to this conversation again and recollect that, man, Stephanie, it's okay to be not okay. All right. And I ain't trying to push you along and say, hey man, just come on, get to work, figure it out. You got it. And Bettina says, I anguished for many, many years after the loss of my firstborn, and it was a ceremony that I created for her at year 16 that helped me lift the heaviness and embrace the what now. Thank you for having your podcast to do this important work. Thank you, Bettina. God bless everybody tonight. Okay. Yeah, because, you know, I don't know how much closer loss could have come. Loss with my nephew, Jordan, loss with Chris's close friend, Big Watt. You know, I don't know how close it could be. The White Oak High School community was shaken just a few weeks ago. We were shaken as a family just a few months ago. And, man, there are times where I just go in the bathroom and be all by myself and just break down. And I'm like, man, everybody needs to know that I'm CL King and I got it together and I don't have any emotions. That's a bunch of hogwash and y'all know it. So thank you, Greg, for helping us tonight. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Bettina. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for everyone that tuned in at various intervals. Joanne, thank you. Pratiba, thank you. Thank you guys, man. So I'm working on my book. The title of it's called Who Ate My Brownie? And even doing that brings up grief, if you will, because it's unearthing a very, very sordid and tumultuous childhood of mine. And every day I'm making a little chronology about it. And some days I don't have good days because I did that. And you know, I'm thankful that it's okay that, man, some days I'm not okay. Y'all know that some days, even though I'm the motivator and I'm telling you to grind and I'm telling you not to give up, that some days I'm not okay. And you know, Susan just gave us a clear understanding that is truly what grief is processing it on your time, on your schedule. And it is exceptionally heavy at times. It's hard. It's a feeling that sinks into the depths of your soul. So what I can suggest is, for those that are around you that you love, live with your souls inside out. Like she said, her and her husband did. Never heard a statement such as that. They lived with their souls inside out. I need to live that way with Charity. Because, these kids going to get out and leave, forget all about me and her. Better live with our souls inside out, sweetheart. And yeah, you're right, Stephanie. Sometimes the standard is hard on people who are content creators and motivators. Like, they don't ever have a bad day. Man, some days I want to just not show up. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, thank you guys. I felt like this was a very communal show tonight. I feel like we all connected in the spirit, and I feel like we all got plugged into grief, because we will all deal with it in one shape, fashion, or form. And so I want you all to know, on behalf of myself and our entire team, that we love you. I can't let everybody on this show, okay? But man, if there's anything that I can do for you, if any way that I can be a help to you, any way that Greg and I and our team can be a help, all you got to do is go to clkingspeaker.com. And it's just that simple. If you need to call us, you can call Greg, 252-626-8987. His numbers are plastered all over everything we do, guys. So it's not like I'm giving out something that's a secret. His number's known all around the world. And if you need us, just call us, okay? So we will be back here Monday. Back grinding, man. We do 144 shows a year. Can y'all believe that? I'm here Monday night, Tuesday night, and Thursday night. We do 144 shows a year. If you'd like to become a sponsor of the show, we got some merch that's coming out too, y'all. Y'all going to love it. If you'd like to be a sponsor of this show, just go to clkingspeaker.com. Pay $1, pay $5, pay $15. That helps us keep this show on the air, helps bring quality guests to our show like you heard tonight, and helps us reach at-risk youth all throughout the country. That's what your gifts will do. That's what your donation will do. That's what your sponsorship will do. All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Augie. Thank you, everyone, for really staying with us tonight. And we will see you again on Monday night at 8:30 on Impacting Life 24/7 with your host, CL King.